Hello and welcome to the Gold Loppers podcast. I'm definitely not Jeff Goldblum.
And I'm definitely not Cyndi Lauper.
And this is definitely not the hit 1988 movie Vibes, starring Jeff Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper, but it may very well be the next best thing. I'm Ethan May.
And I'm Kylie Stone.
Let's get started.
Vibes.
Alright, this is an extremely special episode of the Gold Loppers podcast because for the very first time, we are on video for our little Christmas special, and we also have our first guest. We have my younger sister, Hannah Mae, joining us from Minnesota. She is here to spend Christmas with me. So we're doing kind of a little Christmas bonus episode here. Video is not going to be a regular part of the podcast or anything. We are just we're trying something new just for kicks and giggles. And I feel like we lack a good deal of like social media presence because we normally don't have video. We normally just have audio. So we figure a lot of the people seeing this will be looking at the Gold Loppers podcast for the very first time. So Kylie and I conceived of the Gold Loppers podcast, and what our idea is we want to make a YouTube video where we watch and rank the top 75 highest grossing rom-coms of all time by US domestic box office, and ranking them from start to finish, or ranking them from worst to best. It's going to be a big old process. So this podcast is how we're doing it. Every week we watch a different rom-com, and then we rate it on a series of criteria. And the goal is at the end of the podcast to make a big YouTube video. And that's what this is. This is our way of speaking about each movie individually. And then we also have a segment of the podcast where we talk about the media we've consumed since the last time we recorded. And then since Kylie and I love sharks, we have a segment where we talk about our shark of the week. And that's what the Gold Loppers podcast is. This is going to be a Christmas bonus episode where we talk about the movie Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis, which is, in my opinion, the most iconic Christmas movie. Kylie, would you like to tell us about Die Hard?
I would love to. Let's pull up my notes.
Oh my gosh, notes. I have my notes like down to the viewer. I have notes like way down here.
I also have my notes in the downward direction. Anyway, it's Christmas, and John McClane is home for the holidays. He visits his wife at a holiday party to reconcile their differences, but terrorists invade the building looking for money, and John, along with a cop on the outside named Al, must save the day.
Welcome to the party, pal!
And as always, chaos ensues.
Oh, of course, chaos ensues.
So, like, one of the requisites to a rom-com, like, one of the things that makes a rom-com is chaos ensuing. It has to ensue. And I feel like we're gonna, for the bit and for the sake of consistency in the podcast, for any prospective listeners that come from this podcast, we are going to talk about Die Hard like it's a fucking rom-com.
Might as well be. I swear to God that Hans and John were flirting there for a little bit.
No, Hans and John are definitely flirting.
Enemies to lovers?
All right, you gotta speak with more energy, child.
Oh, right. Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm Ethan's little sister.
Who are you? Tell us about yourself.
That's mostly it. I'm Ethan's little sister. I'm a fellow film and especially rom-com enthusiast. I am an active listener of the podcast. I'm a wee bit behind, but I do very much enjoy it as much as I enjoy all the rom-coms, and I also thoroughly enjoyed Die Hard. Spoiler.
Spoiler alert, Die Hard fucking bangs from beginning to end, and it's awesome.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's still really good. Of course, I want to say all of us have seen it before. Kylie, I'm not sure if you've seen it before.
No, this was my first time watching Die Hard.
Really?
We have popped Kylie's Die Hard cherry.
Oh
So
my
we are
God.
Kylie watched Die Hard for the very first time.
John McClane popped your cherry, dude.
Oh no.
Kylie, what
I
did
gotta
you I just realized I have that thing that I need to do elsewhere. Kylie, what did you think of Die Hard?
I feel like you're gonna be disappointed with me because I thought the first hour was quite boring. I did really, really enjoy the second half, but the first hour I thought dragged.
Interesting. I think Die Hard is an all-timer for me. I really think it's one of the best movies ever made. And I think though that first hour feels slow, I feel like it does a really good job of laying tons and tons of groundwork, and there's not like a single piece of information that doesn't connect from beginning to end. Like literally with the movie opening with making fists with your toes to like John running around barefoot the whole fucking movie. Like every single thing connects and I love it.
I really forget that they don't let that man wear shoes for the entire film. I don't know the exact runtime, but it's at least like what, almost 2 hours, if not 2 hours.
Yeah, I think it's about 2 hours and 15.
Yeah, it is definitely over 2 hours.
132 minutes.
That really did not feel that long. And like, I don't want to say that I necessarily grew up with this movie, that we grew up with this movie, because like we definitely saw it when we were children. I still think it 100% holds up seeing it as an adult. Bruce Willis hot.
Bruce Willis is so hot.
Receding hairline and all, Bruce Willis hot.
Oh,
Kylie,
hot
do
take?
you disagree that Bruce Willis is hot?
I'm gonna have to disagree there.
Bruh! Oh no! But so why did you think that the first part of the movie dragged, Kylie?
I honestly think it's just a me thing because I can see how the movie is like establishing those details that always come back later and like everything is important. I'm just not a huge action guy. Like if a movie's all action, I kind of start to lose interest. Period.
End
Period,
of
statement, declarative. Yeah, I don't know. This movie's so special to me. Like even down to like the first time that we see the Germans starting to like do their thing, you hear these little leitmotifs of Beethoven's Ninth. Like you hear them sowing the seeds of the Beethoven's Ninth, and then when they get into the vault, it's just full da na 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 na. I think it's the silliest thing. I love it.
I did notice that. I did notice the music this time.
Kylie, you noticed the music?
What can I say? I did notice the classical music.
To someone who is a non-normal listener of the Gold Loppers podcast, I famously pay lots of attention to the terrible music that's in rom-coms, and Kylie like never notices the music. She's always just kind of like, oh yeah, I don't know, I don't really notice the music, but so I'm shook.
That sounds exactly like me.
I'm usually not one to notice the music either. Of course, I've never been much of a musical person, so I usually that's what I attribute it to. Ethan's always been the musical one in the family, but. Yeah, I thought this movie was pretty damn good. I was pretty satisfied. Of course, I don't have a ton of technical notes on the film, though. Like, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Historically, I think all the performances are really good. I think everybody has the certain amount of chemistry that they're supposed to have. Like, Argyle and John and Holly. Hell, Holly and Hans all have, like, good, appropriate chemistry for what their parts are. And I appreciate that because I always think chemistry is important.
Well, and I think the most important thing about the chemistry in this movie is that John is never in the same room with anyone. He literally doesn't meet Al until the very end of the movie. He's talking to everybody over a fucking walkie-talkie. Like, John is by himself the entire movie, and he still has exceptional chemistry with everyone, which I think is really, really impressive and really tough to do.
Yeah, I did like Al, the cop outside. I liked him. I do think there are some, I mean, again, this movie was, a long time ago. I do think there's some definitely problematic aspects there as far as propaganda goes, but I do like their relationship a lot.
Oh yeah, I think it's so funny. Like if you ever watch like Blue Bloods or something, like Donnie, like I forget how much Donnie Wahlberg pulls directly from John McClane. Like John McClane is the original tough New York City cop. Come on.
Mm-hmm. The receding hairline too. He still does
everything.
Yeah, I love Al a lot. I think it's hilarious how like the big like shadow villain of this movie is the liberal media. Holly clocking the reporter as the last possible thing that happens in the movie was awesome.
I forgot to give a spoiler warning. Fair warning that we talk spoilers on the Gold Loppers podcast. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't want it spoiled, you're in the wrong place.
Well, I think I am literally the only person on the planet who hasn't seen Die Hard yet.
Yeah, this is most definitely a 40-year-old movie. It is not a recent movie.
I think you'd be a little surprised just because it's like a franchise that is iconic, but because it doesn't have any like, are they coming out with any new Die Hard movies? What was the last Die Hard that
came out? With the fifth or sixth Die Hard in the last like 10 years.
5?
There's 5 or 6 of them. There's Die Hard, Die Hard 2, which I think is Die Harder.
Is it actually?
I think there's Die Hard, Die Harder, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Live Free or Die Hard, and then It's a Good Day to Die Hard,
God damn it.
which I think is the stupidest movie title in the entire world.
Sometimes I don't know how recently they came out with a new Die Hard, because I feel like I saw a trailer for like a new action movie to the tune of Die Hard that came out rather recently that's from another iconic franchise. It might have been The Expendables, so I might be getting it confused with The Expendables. Which Bruce Willis might also be in, now that I'm thinking about it, but that's not really important right now.
I don't know for sure if Bruce Willis is in The Expendables. I'm looking at like the list. I'm looking at like the list of Die Hard sequels. Yeah, so it's Die Hard, Die Hard 2. I guess it's Die Hard 2, but I thought for sure it was Die Harder.
Ooh.
I think that's a meme, man.
That might be a meme. Anyway, it's Die Hard 2, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Live Free or Die Hard, and A Good Day to Die Hard, which came out in 2013. So the most recent one came out a little more than 10 years ago.
Oh, that was 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, 2013 was 10 years ago. Sorry, guys. It's about to be more than 10 years ago because it's about to be 2024 in like a week.
Yeah.
Whoopee!
Okay, so I feel like the first major thing that we need to talk about with Die Hard, before we get super deep into the movie, I feel like there has been an existential, like, eternal internet debate on whether or not this is a Christmas movie. Kylie, how do you feel about Die Hard being a Christmas movie?
I say yes, because it takes place during Christmas, like, that's very well established in the movie, and there are so many people who watch it, like, as a Christmas tradition that it just has to be a Christmas movie.
Yeah, like, now I have a machine gun, ho ho ho. This movie ends with Let It Snow playing in the credits. The credits song is Let It Snow. The Christmas movie is a go for launch.
I honestly, I'm gonna soft disagree. I think for the meme, it's a Christmas movie, because I think it's very funny to have one of the most iconic action movies of all time also be a Christmas movie. But I think like the focal point of every Christmas movie should be Christmas. And the focal point of this movie is not Christmas. It just happens to take place during Christmas, and they draw attention to that for specific small emotional payoffs in the movie and comic moments.
For me, it's the sentence, it's not a Christmas movie, but it's a movie that takes place on Christmas, and they draw specific attention to the fact that it takes place on Christmas.
like few and far between.
In what universe is that not a Christmas movie?
Well, because you have, like, okay, what are other Christmas movies? You got Elf, which is completely centered around Christmas and the spirit of Christmas. This movie is not about the spirit of Christmas, and it's not about the holiday Christmas. It takes place around Christmas.
Okay. I see where this argument comes from, and I vibe with it to like a certain extent.
You gold lopper with it.
Yeah, I gold those loppers, you know? I gold those Die Hard Christmas movie loppers.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of which, this movie definitely didn't make me want to Bruce my Willises into Alan Rickman's.
Ugh.
Ew. That was you.
I absolutely did not feel the need to Bruce my Willises into Alan Rickman's. May he Rickman in peace.
Yeah, he did die, but he died some time ago.
He did die a little while ago. Alan Rickman died, I want to say in the last 10 years, but it was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to say he died. I think I remember hearing his death.
January of 2016.
Oh my god.
Okay, he died later than I thought he did.
Yeah, he died a while ago. Like, he died right after the Harry Potter series ended. Like, right after they finished up with Harry Potter, Alan Rickman passed away.
What a guy, what a legend. He looks great in this movie.
He is so silly in this movie.
He's so baby.
Absolute baby.
Baby boy.
Baby boy.
Because I want to say, this took place even because, like, the other thing that I saw from this era of his career is probably Sense and Sensibility, but even then, I want to say that's from 96. So that's almost a decade later.
Yeah, this movie came out in 1988, and he is very, very young. I kind of want to check his filmography and see how close it is to, like, the very, very beginning of his filmography.
It's active from 1976, it says on his Wikipedia.
74.
Whoa. But I know at the very least he was a Shakespearean actor, and I don't know if that's how he started with mainly stage productions.
Oh wow, this was his first feature film. This
It wasn't.
Yeah, no, this was I'm reading right from Wikipedia here. In 1988, Rickman played the antagonist Hans Gruber in the action thriller Die Hard in what was his first feature film. He was a professional Shakespearean actor leading up to Die Hard, and Die Hard was his feature film debut.
Bro, way to chew it up and spit it out, Alan Rickman.
So this movie was the first time that the world saw Alan Rickman.
Okay, now hold on. There was the production of Romeo and Juliet with him and Anthony Andrews as
I said the world.
But they filmed it professionally and it was really good. He was Tybalt and he had a really ugly bowl cut.
Ooh.
The world.
But Anthony Andrews, okay. The world.
That production of Romeo and Juliet was actually beamed into everybody's head at birth.
Man, they missed me.
The world might be a slightly better place if it was.
This
You would probably better realize the issues with it.
This is one of the most quotable movies I think ever made.
Like I
For my
obviously haven't seen it until now, but the things that they were saying, I was like, oh, I've heard other people say this in other movies. They were definitely quoting Die Hard.
I jot down, so I take notes every time I watch a movie, and not every time I watch a movie, but for the purposes of the podcast, I always take notes and I jot down memorable quotes. My list of memorable quotes is 18 quotes long,
Oh my god.
which is an all-time Goldloppers record, and it's not close.
There's some fantastic lines from this movie.
There are some really, really iconic lines in this movie, and a lot of them come from Alan Rickman, him just being like, the benefits of a classical education.
That's the good one, man.
I'm dead,
My
bro.
mom still says that all the time.
Yeah, my mom loves this movie. Hi, Mom, by the way. I know that my mother is watching. Hi, Mom. Love you. There are so many quotable lines. I mean, obviously, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, is one of the most iconic lines in the history of film. The benefits of a classical education is hilarious. Bro, when Ellis comes in and Ellis is like talking about the plan, he's like, you're very perceptive.
Mother, I'm sorry. Alan Rickman serves cunt in this movie. Alan Rickman is literally, I wrote several times in my notes that Alan Rickman is cunty in this movie.
Slay.
He slays, dude! When he first gets to talk to John McClane, like, they're sitting there, I was just like, are they flirting? Are they flirting?
So to quote Professor Lucas Arnold, if Holly Gennaro is a girl queen, then Alan Rickman is a pussy boss.
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I really apologize that the internet just had to see that.
I'm going to count to 3.
But yeah, no, I can get on board that Alan put his whole Rickussy into this movie.
Ew.
The time
Dude,
when
he rolled in his grave when you just said that.
The time when he's talking, like he's doing his ransom, and he's like, Carl looks at him like, what? He's like, I read about them in Time magazine.
I read about them in Time magazine.
He's so good. He's such a scene stealer. Every single person that he talks to in this movie, he's awesome. He's awesome. He's so good.
Yeah, and when he's Clay, Bill Clay.
Oh my god.
His American accent sent me! It sent me to space!
It's really, really silly.
It's really silly, and I was just like, why is it so silly? I was like, oh, right, they're in LA. So put that up on your tally of rom-coms or these films in your podcast that take place in LA.
Yeah, we have a rom-com settings war. Kylie and I share the belief that New York is the city where all rom-coms should take place, but a frustrating amount of rom-coms don't take place in New York. They take place in LA and Chicago, and I'm not adding this movie to the tally because it's not on our rom-com list, so it doesn't get to be...
Allegedly.
Allegedly. It doesn't get to factor into the tally because it's not a rom-com, but if it did factor into the tally, it would be I think the 5th or 6th rom-com out of 17 that is in LA, which I think is inexcusable.
How many are in New York?
5 or 6. I don't want to pull it up right now. I don't want to keep like reaching over for my computer and like trying to look other things up because my iPad does not multitask my note-taking app the way my computer does. We're in a very unfamiliar setup right now. Normally I'm like over in the corner of my apartment like talking to my window as I talk to Kylie.
But now we're girls on film.
The FBI guys send me to the moon and back.
Johnson & Johnson. A family.
Freaking Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson, no, the other one. Yeah, that's good.
I would like to say right now that my favorite quote in the history of cinema, I am not being hyperbolic, my favorite quote from any movie ever is Johnson looking at Johnson and going, just like fucking Saigon, eh, Slick? And he goes, I was in junior high, dickhead.
Just like fucking Saigon! Hey, Slick! I was in junior high, dickhead.
That is the greatest line ever written for the screen. I cannot be convinced otherwise. I refuse to be convinced otherwise.
You cannot change his mind.
I don't think I'll try.
I don't think you want to.
I don't.
No, but this movie is super... I'm looking at Ethan's notes and it just says, no more table! In all caps.
This booking chair was coming up and being like, no more table! And then he's like, next time you should kill someone when you have the chance. And John McClane just unloads an entire pistol clip into that guy's balls.
Thanks for the advice.
Now don't get me wrong. Hans Gruber slays the most in this movie, but we cannot skip over how John McClane also slays. Literally and figuratively.
And I think that's why they fall in love.
Yeah.
I think that's why they kiss at the end.
I think my favorite part was when John McClane gifted Alan Rickman Holly Gennaro's company Rolex as he fell to his death.
Way to go out like a Disney villain also. Thank you very much for killing him like the Wicked Witch.
No, but like that's another small detail. Like Ellis gives, he talked about Holly's like company Rolex that they gave her, like her appreciation gift, and then like that's the thing that Hans Gruber is like hanging on to at the end, and they release the Rolex, and that's another little fun film fact. Kylie's actually down here. I keep looking up toward the camera because Kylie's on a monitor behind my camera. But Kylie, fun film fact. They didn't tell Alan Rickman when they were gonna drop him when they were filming that. Like they were like, we're gonna count to 3, and they dropped him on 1, which is why he has such a genuine reaction to
Classic. Oldest trick in the book.
absolute
Those
oldest
silly-
trick in the book.
Those silly guys.
Silly guys. What a
Lying to that poor
bunch
man.
what a bunch of goofy motherfuckers.
Goofy goobers indeed.
Just absolute goofy goobers.
That's what I think of. I think of goofy goobers when I think of Die Hard.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you remember the time where John McClane and Alan Rickman sang the Goofy Goober song together?
Oh, was that before or after they kissed?
It
was before.
It was obviously before. You can't kiss before you sing the Goofy Goober song. I mean, SpongeBob and Patrick always sing the Goofy Goober song before they kiss.
Very true.
SpongeBob and Patrick always sing the Goofy Goober song before they kiss. It's like the first rule of SpongeBob. My favorite queer couple from television is SpongeBob and Patrick.
Uh-huh.
Hey man, SpongeBob's in there somewhere. They use him in their Pride Month marketable content. Nickelodeon does.
Do they
It's
actually?
like,
Yeah.
here's SpongeBob. Everybody's like, why is he there? They're just like, we don't know. Come on, guys. Come Why
because
do you think he's
SpongeBob is a pussy boss.
on. Or is he a girl queen? I can't do the tongue pop either.
Nope.
I can blame mine on the tongue piercing. Ethan can't.
I don't have a tongue piercing. I have no excuse for my ineptitude.
Yeah, that's embarrassing for you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I hate to embarrass us here on the internet because we've never done that to ourselves before. We've never done anything embarrassing here on the Goldloppers podcast ever.
We would never.
What were you saying, Kylie? You were about to say something.
I can see why Andy Samberg's character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine loves this movie.
The more time that I spend watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'm starting to wonder if the showrunners are reading my diary, because Jake Peralta and I are the same person.
That's right, Rosa. I'm doing the full bullpen.
I mean, do we have more to say about Die Hard? I'm sure we have more to say about Die Hard.
I don't know. I feel like I want to hear more from you, Kylie. Like, I feel like you're the new arrival to Die Hard. I feel like I want to hear more. I feel like I want to hear more of your opinions about it.
I don't know. Like, I could go on for a very long time about the propaganda and about Al's character and how, like, his whole thing was that he shot a child, and, like, looking at that through today's context is very complicated, especially in today's climate, because this stuff was happening back then. It just wasn't as widely known or as widely reported. But now that we're in an era where these things are happening all the time and it's being caught all the time, it's hard to feel bad for him. It's very unsettling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent point. And I think it's also valid to bring up that what John does in this movie is terrible, by the way. Just like in concept, in theory, in execution, like John gets people killed in this movie, straight up.
Yeah, like right at the beginning, he says, like, the guy sees his gun on the plane and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm a cop," and that, like, makes me even more nervous. And then he says something about like playing by the rules, or like somebody's like, "You're a policeman, don't you have rules?" And he's like, "Yeah, someone tells me I do," or like my chief tells me that I do, and it's like, ugh, you know?
Yeah, that's what my captain keeps telling me. Like, this is a movie where when you're viewing it with like a 2023 lens, you know, you really have to. This isn't quite a 40-year-old movie. This is a 35-year-old movie. This is the type of movie where when you're viewing it with a 2023 lens, you have to look past certain things. Like, I think this is a 10 out of 10 movie, but I can also like talk about the fact that there's a lot of really crazy shit that shouldn't be happening in this movie. Like, the entire premise is super flawed, and what's going on with the police in general in this movie is insane.
Yeah, and I think it's something we have to acknowledge, but we can also appreciate the movie outside of it.
I agree.
Any thoughts on your end?
I generally agree. I just think that there's a long history in cinema of like glorifying certain bad things in adventure and action films.
Yeah.
And I think obviously acknowledging these things isn't necessarily a bad thing, but also like utilizing those as moral leverage against a movie that is supposed to be like an action movie is kind of just not super productive, but that's me. But when he did at the very beginning of the movie, when he was just like, "Don't worry, I'm a cop," I was like, that doesn't just instill comfort anymore. I think that would make it worse.
Right. Like, I think it's a whole different discussion. Like, I think there's a whole discussion to be had, like you said, about like action movies and glorifying those kinds of things, and that is separate from, you know, this movie individually and like what makes it a good movie.
Like, I know they're supposed to be making the FBI guys look like terrible people, but when he's like, lose 25% of the hostages, like, he says that so casually, and just absolute insanity to me. Like, why does Hans Gruber look at Holly Gennaro with more empathy than the FBI look at the hostages? Like, when Holly Gennaro is like, "Can we bring in a couch for this pregnant woman?" Like, he talks to her with like sensitivity and humanity, and it's kind of insane.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. That's like, why is he more sympathetic to the hostages than the police and the FBI?
Literally, like, it's actually insane. I can't tell if this movie is forward thinking in the way that it comments on how the police like fuck shit up. Like, on one hand, it like John McClane is rogue hero cop. On the other hand, the organization of the police and like the police as an institution failed miserably in this movie.
And both can be true.
Both could be true. But I think we have to establish that John McClane is a vigilante who puts people's lives in danger.
Indy doesn't wear shoes.
Ew.
That's not necessarily
John
his
McClane's
fault.
got his dogs out.
Put those grippers away.
But like, especially because like they do try to of make that point, like, in the movie. They're just like, dude, you gotta let us do our jobs. But, like, the other cops are also like, you aren't doing your jobs. You suck too much. And I'm like, well, everybody kind of sucks in their own way in this movie.
Yeah.
In their administration of justice. Although, I thought it was very funny at the very end, where, like, Al... Who does he even shoot?
Carl.
He shoots Carl,
Yeah.
and, like, you get
Carl
this, like,
comes back
awesome-
from the dead. Carl hung up in those chains for a solid, like, 10 minutes, and then just, like, comes back from the dead just so that Al Powell can shoot him and have his redemption moment.
I didn't know that was the same guy.
No, that was the guy that he hung up by the chains, that John McClane, like, fist fought, hung him by the neck in the chains, and then we watched the
Slammed
hostages...
him into a wall.
We watched the hostages come down from the roof, and he's still hanging there.
Mm-hmm.
So he's hanging before the hostages go to the roof, and then after they come down, and then he gets down from the chains and goes out with a machine gun to try and kill John McClane.
Sure.
And Al's like, don't worry. They show his gun firing like 4 different times, and they focus on him. And I'm like, yeah, he shot the right... Bless you 2 times.
Thank you.
He shot the right non-minor, not a child person this time.
Non-minor, non-minor, non-child.
Non-child.
I wonder if there's a word for that.
Adult.
Adult person. I was like, yeah, this is a great redemption moment, you guys. I'm really glad you tied up that little emotional struggle with a bow.
I will say, one thing I do want to give credit to this movie on is that for the late 1980s, they did not pick a controversial group of terrorists.
Yes. Correct.
The terrorists are not from the Middle East. They are not Russian, because this is a Cold War era movie. I mean, I guess it's post Cold War, but the Berlin Wall had not come down yet. East Germany was like still a thing. This movie was like, okay, we're gonna take West German terrorists and we're also gonna mix in some American guys and a black guy and an Asian guy. Like, I want to shout out how diverse this movie's cast was for 1988. This movie had a super diverse cast.
Mm-hmm. For like a blockbuster in 1988.
Yeah, for a blockbuster in 1988, like this is more diverse than most of the rom-coms we've watched on our list so far.
Yeah.
It passes a Bechdel test right out the gate too. The very first words that Holly says to her coworker, Bechdel test passed. Done.
Oh, check that out.
Check that out. Look at him go.
Swish.
I want to have a very, very brief conversation about the German in this movie.
Sure.
For those who don't know, I am not a fluent German speaker, but I am a conversationally competent German speaker. I spent a year living in Germany, and the German in this movie is quite good. It's never subtitled, so since they choose not to use subtitles, they do what is, in my opinion, the most infuriating thing that you can do, where a German looks at a German and says, "Schieß dem Fenster," which is German for shoot the window. And then the German just kind of stares at the other German, and Hans Gruber goes, "Shoot the glass." At which point the other German proceeds to shoot the glass.
Awesome.
9 times out of 10, they're saying real German words. They are saying words that make sense. They're saying complete sentences. They are speaking German the way Germans speak German. Their accents aren't spectacular. I don't know how many of these men are actually German. A couple of them sound pretty good, but some of them sound kind of bad. But no, that specific line where Hans Gruber looks at Carl and he goes, "Schieß dem Fenster," and he doesn't do it, and then he's like, "Shoot the glass." I hate that shit. It's so stupid. But, I don't know. Is there anything else we want to say about this movie before we get into the Goldlopper's numbers?
I got nothing.
Argyle's awesome. I love Argyle so
he's
much.
a special guy.
Oh, yeah.
Argyle, like the movie just like cutting to Argyle just like jamming out in the limousine, and then he does like literally one thing. He does exactly one thing in this movie.
I'm just like, but he did it! Argyle saves the day! Huzzah!
Argyle is also a dangerous vigilante who allegedly takes lives.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. We don't know what happens to that black guy in the not ambulance. I think I've said just about everything that I need to say about this movie. It's cool. The guy who plays Al Powell. The guy who plays Al Powell is Reginald Vell Johnson. This movie is notably Reginald VelJohnson before Family Matters.
Ah!
Reginald VelJohnson is also a cop in Family Matters, by the way.
Typecasting at its finest.
And
He is a cop, though. Family Matters. I've seen some really. I'm not like a person who's really watched Family Matters, but I've seen some cool scenes from Reginald VelJohnson from Family Matters as it pertains to like cops and like being a black cop in a team of mostly white cops. I don't know, interesting stuff. I like Reginald VelJohnson a lot, and it's cool seeing him in this movie like pre Family Matters.
Mm-hmm. They probably saw him in this movie and they were just like, we know where to put you, buddy.
You know that guy who played the cop in Die Hard? We're gonna make a whole TV show out of that.
Let's have him do it again.
And then let's create a character named Steve Urkel. His tagline will be, "Did I do that?"
oh.
Oh, one thing I want to say about the beginning of the movie is that I really appreciated how they initiated this operation that the Germans were doing. Like, they kind of come in with little fanfare and they make it very clear to the audience without any dialogue for a good period of time how capable and dangerous these people are and how well planned out this operation is.
I felt very Ocean's 11.
Very much so. And like, they don't need to say anything about the setup. You don't need to know anything about like their plans or their setup. They just come in and they execute it in like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And obviously things go wrong later, but they make sure to establish how good and dangerous these people are immediately in a way that I thought was like super, super clever.
It was like high and tight. Like it was like, these are dudes with a plan. You can watch them execute the plan. It is clear that they have thought through every single detail except John McClane.
But they are like, because again, I haven't seen this, so like there was a small part of me that was like, maybe John McClane loses, maybe he dies, because these guys are very smart. Like I didn't think so, but there was a small part of me that thought it could happen.
I feel like in the same way the Fast and the Furious movies, Kylie is currently, for the viewer who is not a regular listener of our podcast, Kylie is making her way through the Fast and Furious franchise right now. You might even
I'm done.
Yeah, you're done with it at this point. And in the same way that the Fast and Furious movies escalate how, like, the crazy shit that people survive, John McClane survives more and more insane shit as the series goes on. And I feel like this movie, of all the crazy things John McClane survives, like, this is the movie where he gets, like, the shit beat out of him in the most realistic manner.
Yeah, like in this movie, he has to survive glass in his foot. In, like, the fourth movie, there's something, he, like, jumps on a plane?
Yeah, no, he jumps on like a Harrier jet, and he also drives a semi-truck up like a shattered interstate bridge. Like, he does the craziest fucking shit in that movie, and he's like 65 too. He's like a senior citizen.
Of course he does.
He shoots himself through the chest. He's being held hostage by Timothy Olyphant, and he shoots himself through the shoulder to shoot the man holding him hostage behind the neck. It's insanity.
Of course.
Anywho, I vote that we get into the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, come on, you guys. Let's get serious. Stop dicking around.
Okay, so it is at this point in the podcast where we dive into the criteria that we use to rank and evaluate and rate the rom-coms that we talk about. And we have a series of categories that we use to discuss a rom-com. We're going to pretend, for the bit, that Die Hard is a rom-com, and we're just gonna go through all the categories as we would and decide how this movie fits into the rom-com canon. For those following along at home, our categories are as follows. Are there boobs? Was there a woman involved in the writing or directing process of this movie? Does it pass a Bechdel test? Its actual quality and its rom-com quality on a scale of 1 to 10. How sexist and how problematic is it on a scale of 1 to 10? And a final grade. We had boob liftoff in this movie.
There were boobs in many different forms.
There
were
were
boobs on a
boobs
real lady. There were poster boobs.
Yeah, they were like Chekhov's boobs too.
There were statue boobs.
They were like Chekhov's boobs, and like the couple that came into the bathroom, like they were trying to fuck, and then the terrorists caught them fucking in an office, and we got some boobs out of that.
Good for Chekhov and his boobs.
Yeah. Chekhov and his boobs. I hear their names were Igor and Igor.
Yeah, didn't you realize that he loved those to the point of naming them?
No, I'm talking like boobs in the way that like Megan calls Drake and Josh boobs. Like Chekhov's boobs. Chekhov's boobs. They were like his henchmen, Igor and Igor.
Got it.
But then he also had massive gazungas.
Yeah. I feel like that's I feel like that's
naturals.
I feel like I feel like that's a play that we need to write now. Chekhov's boobs, Igor and Igor. Anyway,
Oh my God.
there are boobs in this movie. There was not a woman involved in the production of this movie outside of the cast for miles.
That makes sense.
I don't think there was actually a woman who knew that this movie existed until she saw it in theaters. There were negative women involved in the making of this movie, and I think that it's very, very evident.
I hate women. All they do is cry all the time.
Yeah, so we had boobs. Absolutely no women involved. This movie does pass a Bechdel test, though. It passes a Bechdel test, and then 2 women never speak again.
Yeah.
Like, Holly and her assistant exchange a sentence about Holly's assistant's baby, and then that's it.
Which could be a man.
We never hear from the women again. Since the baby is of ambiguous gender, and the gender identity of the child is not revealed, we can assume that the movie passes a Bechdel test.
By the skin of its teeth.
By the skin of its teeth.
Is Holly's assistant named?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Jenny, it's 5:40. Go join the party, have some champagne. You're making me feel like Ebenezer Scrooge.
What are we thinking about for actual quality here, friends?
I don't know how much I want to let the iconic nature of this film speak to its actual quality, because it's certainly iconic. And like on an iconic scale, it's like 98 to 100.
We're on a scale of 10 here, just so you know.
98 to 1. No.
This movie is a
9.8
98
to
out of 10. Kylie, what do you think?
The number that's jumping out to me is like a 7.5.
So, just for the viewer who's not familiar with the podcast, what we do at this stage in the podcast is we come to a consensus on a number. So we take our own numbers and we agree on a number for the sake of scoring this movie out of 10 for actual quality, rom-com quality, how sexist, how problematic. So we all have to agree.
I could go higher. I think I just want to start the bidding at a 7.5.
I view it as a movie that is well written and well paced.
Well written, well paced, high, tight. Every single character feels fleshed out. They all have good chemistry. Like, even, you know, there are things that I want from this movie because of its datedness. Like, its datedness leaves me wanting some things. Like, if it were to be remade today, I would want things to be done a little bit differently. But, like, for me, I mean, I've said it already. I think this is like a 10 out of 10 movie. Like, I think it's a 9.5, 10 out of 10 movie. I think it's just, as far as like blockbuster action movies go, this movie is as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's like the blockbuster action movie.
And it's as good as it gets, but it doesn't make me want to jack my Nicholsons into Helen's Hunts.
I knew that was coming.
I feel like we're really on
Maybe
the
this
same.
is good as it gets.
We're on the same wavelength. We catch the same Gold Loppers sometimes. Yeah, we have a whole podcast called the Gold Loppers Podcast, after all. But yeah, I think this movie's about as great as it gets. I think I would be really hard pressed to give this movie an actual quality below like an 8.5. Even that feels bad.
I'm ready to go with a 9, personally.
I think for me, because I do recognize that this movie is, I think, just a lot better. It's good. It's a good movie. I just don't like it. It's not for me. I think my personal score would be like a 7, 7.5, but I think I'm willing to go higher because I recognize that it is a good movie, you know?
It's also, I think this movie is also funnier than it gets credit for. This is a really fucking funny movie.
The dialogue is snappy.
The dialogue is snappy. When Bruce Willis looks at he's talking to the FBI guy, he's like,
I'm not the one who just got butt fucked on national TV, Dwayne.
I gotta say,
I screamed.
Every instance of the word fuck in this movie is so perfect and so powerful.
No fucking shit, lady. What does it look like? I'm ordering a pizza?
Every single time, because it's mostly John McClane. I think maybe a couple other people say it at some point, but it's usually him.
Yeah. Like,
it's always good.
Yeah, it just for me there's so much to love about this movie, and I understand where you're coming from, Kylie. Like, I understand your background as a film watcher, right? And I know you very, very well, and I totally vibe with you finding this movie to be a 7.5, and I get that. This is a movie that I watched for the first time when I was 13. And it's been it's gotten better and better with age for me. Like, this is a movie that for me ages like fine wine.
I do think it would benefit from a rewatch. I do think I'd like it better upon a rewatch.
Yeah, I think this is one of those movies where there's things that you pick up on as you watch this movie 2, 3, 4 times that you didn't pick up on the first time. But I can also separate this movie from the action movie genre. If we're stacking this up against the best movies of all time, I can land on an 8.5 and not lose sleep on it. If Kylie, if you're feeling that 7.5 range, I can land on an 8.5 and I can sleep well tonight.
I could go 8.5, 8.5, 9.
Did it win any Oscars?
I don't think so. No. I can check, but
because like in my mind, big action movies don't win Oscars.
It was nominated for Best Editing and Best Visual Effects. I do not believe it won for either one. Yeah, I don't believe it won anything.
No, it came out the same year as Rain Man.
Yeah, Rain Man swept those Oscars, by the way.
Thank you, Dustin Hoffman. Thank you.
Yeah, it lost Best Sound to Bird, which is a movie I've never heard of. It lost Best Sound Effects to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, it did! Yeah, it did!
As it should.
It lost Best... Coming to America lost Best Makeup to Beetlejuice, by the way. This movie came out the same year as Coming to America.
Jeez. Really iconic year for movies, 1988.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it lost Best Film Editing also to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it also lost Best Visual Effects to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Good.
Yeah, Who Framed Roger Rabbit really cleaned up at the Academy Awards, and I think Die Hard would have won 3 or 4 Oscars were it not for Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Hey,
what a crazy world we live in.
People really be sleeping on that movie. They're just like, yeah, it's about cartoons. I'm just like.
So we're pretty cozy landing on an 8.5 out of 10 for the actual quality. Personally, in my headcanon, it's a 10 out of 10 actual quality, but I also need to be sensitive to my crowd here. The Gold Loppers podcast is a team effort, and if Kylie's hitting at a 7.5, I gotta find you. I gotta be there.
Rom-com.
What are we thinking?
Like, I understand.
Kylie,
I understand why it is a 10 out of 10 movie for you.
Yeah, and I think everybody's different. We all have different filmic sensibilities, and that's okay. And we need to meet each other where we're at. In terms of rom-com quality, this is a 13 out of 10 for me because Hans Gruber and John McClane are my favorite cinema couple.
Well, because...
Yeah, I mean, they do kiss.
They're very hot in the Stevie one, too.
Oh my god, when they're sitting there, like when Hans Gruber is like romantically holding the gun at John McClane's head, and then John McClane's like, oops, no bullets, bro. I could feel that sexual tension for 5,000 miles.
I was sitting there, and so when John McClane gets to talk to Hans Gruber for the first time on the radio, and they have like this great rapport, awesome dialogue, and I'm just like, are they flirting? No, he just talks to everybody that way. And then, when the first time he talks to Al on the radio, I was like, he's not talking to him in that same way. They were flirting! They're flirting!
Romance, there's nothing gay about it. I think this movie, nothing will ever overtake the original Top Gun for the most homoerotic movie in the history of mankind, but there's some really serious bromance going on in this movie, and those German guys, they all fuck each other, and we know it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody knows Germans in the 1980s, big time gay guys. Big time gay.
But for all the heterosexuals out there, at the end of this movie, I was like, oh, chivalry is alive and well in 1988 Die Hard, when John McClane, after getting the worst beating of his life and like limping out of this destroyed building with a foot full of broken glass, still like helps his wife out of the building and into the emergency vehicle. He's like, don't worry, honey. I was like, dude, you are so messed up. And she's just like, oh, thank you, John. Thank you. I got my
John McClane is the dirtiest boy in the history of film at the end of this movie. He is disgusting.
He's the dirtiest boy in the world halfway through this movie with his brown tank top.
Bro, his tank top goes from pure white to just black.
Oh.
Covered in blood, soaked in sweat, nasty, soot-stained feet. Like, he is the dirtiest man. What are we thinking about for rom-com quality? Like, on a serious note here.
2?
2.5?
It's a little funny. It's a little romantic.
It's very, very funny. We had a lot of com, but there's not a lot of rom to speak of here. There's no meet cute. They're divorced.
But they have a moment.
They're separated, not divorced, I should say. They are separated from both one another and reality. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm pretty golden with a 2 on this one.
Cool.
They smooch. There's a smooch at the end, and this movie is very funny. But this is not a rom-com, so it's gonna score very, very low on the rom-com score.
I'll say it was a good kiss at the end. It was a good kiss, because like sometimes kisses can be not good, especially when Harrison Ford gets in there. Keep him out of there. But this was Bruce Willis, so this was a good one.
Bro, but he was also so dirty. Like,
I did, in the back of my mind, I was like,
he was so gross smooching her on the face. Like, he was getting just like dried blood and sweat all over her perfectly clean face, and I was like, John, stop.
But that was in the back of my mind during the kiss. I was like,
oh,
okay.
it was in the front of my mind. I was like, that man is disgusting.
He's stinky.
He's stinky, he icky, he covered in blood. That's okay. But I thought that was a really great moment, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to start the how sexist score. I'd like to start the bidding at a 5. I feel like that feels fair.
Yeah, I would.
Well, Hans Gruber is there for women, having a couch brought up in a woman.
Yeah, Hans Gruber is a feminist. I'll give that to him.
A feminazi.
I was gonna not make that joke out loud. I held that one in, but since we're attached at the hip, one of us had to say it.
Well,
5 feels a little high. There's not any overt sexism. There's just no women in this movie. They take up like 2.5% of the runtime.
I could go 3.
I was gonna say 3 out of 10 feels good because it feels sexist by omission of the opposite sex.
Yeah. Although I thought it was very hilarious that one moment where, like, it's pretty early in the movie where John McClane, like, comes up into the rafters, and I think it's when he's first checking out all the floors that he knows that the terrorists are at, and he sees that locker open with, like, the titty posters on it, and he goes, like, oh. And he walks past the locker, and then he's like, oh, right, I'm on a mission here, and I'm just like...
Also, I do want to say, I did say the opposite sex. I just want to say, for legal reasons, that the Gold Loppers podcast spurns the concept of the gender binary.
Yeah, there's the how gender are you today?
Are you John McClane or are you Hans Gruber?
Somewhere in the middle is Ellis.
This movie made me want to Hans my Grubers into Johns McClane.
There we go.
Yeah, so sexist, we're feeling like a 3 out of 10?
Mm-hmm.
I think at least one of those points is from Ellis in the beginning.
He's so annoying.
Bro, I fucking hate Ellis so much.
I think 4 different times in my...
He's so irritating.
Like, props to that guy for possibly being the most annoying person on the planet for that movie.
Remember when he was snorting cocaine on somebody else's desk? Like, he was at Holly's desk.
He was just hanging out in there.
He was snorting cocaine off of Holly's desk, which I think is the weirdest thing in the entire world.
I was just making a call, and this was the nurse phone.
How problematic are we feeling this movie? Kylie? I always defer to Kylie for the how problematic score, because Kylie is just a little more socially conscious than I am.
And she doesn't have the nostalgia goggles on.
That's true.
I just, like, the propaganda really gets to me, and the way they just, like, do not care about civilians or hostages, and, like, but I also know they're making a point.
Just callous disregard for human life.
I kind of want to start at, like a 6.
I was just about to say that I'd be super comfortable starting at a 6, because I think while there's no overt racism, there's also no overt commentary. Like, the propaganda is insane. It's not racially insensitive. I'll give it to this movie that it's not racially insensitive, but I think this was just like an action movie blockbuster made in 1988. I think getting less than a 6 is almost impossible. I think literally only a gay kiss would have made this movie under a 6 on the problematic score.
But it happened!
Oh yeah, sorry, I totally forgot about the time that John McClane and Hans Gruber kissed.
And the
Sorry.
explosion near the end as the roof was blowing up and rubble was falling everywhere.
Yeah, I'd be pretty cozy with a 6 on this one.
Cool.
So here's the existential question. The final grade that we give this movie, is it a final grade where it would lie on the rom-com list, or are we giving this movie a final grade standing on its own?
Maybe we just have a separate bonus episode list, so you have this movie and Barbie on their own list.
Oh, also My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. It didn't quite make its own bonus episode, but we could have cut it into a 15-minute bonus episode if we wanted to. So what is the rule for our final grade? Are we giving this a final grade on the rom-com list? Because I don't think that's quite fair to this movie.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair.
Die Hard gets a 29. It's a little bit better than There's Something About Mary as a rom-com.
Ooh.
As a rom-com. No, I like the idea of giving this movie a final grade just kind of based on its own merit. I'd like to start the bidding at an 87.
I was thinking an 85, so like we're right there.
It's right in an 80, like an 8.5 for the quality score.
Yeah, like I could really get on board, like in all seriousness, like setting my nostalgia aside and like evaluating this movie like as it is and what it accomplishes, what it's done to the film landscape. I'm super comfortable putting this movie in the 87th percentile of every movie ever made.
Yeah, because as you guys might remember, Paul Blart Mall Cop rips this movie off so hard, and that movie is kind of in like the 35th percentile.
Can our Valentine's Day special be Paul Blart Mall Cop?
You don't want to watch Paul Blart Mall Cop again.
I think it has to be now.
I think I do. I think I actually really, really do.
I thought I needed to watch it again, and I watched it because me and some friends are watching Christmas movies from the 1st to the 25th of December, and early on was Paul Blart, even though it's not really a Christmas movie because it kind of takes place during like Thanksgiving, but we watched it anyway, and I thought I needed to watch it again. I didn't need to watch it again. So take that as you will. If you feel that you need to watch it again, you may. But I'm going to say, you probably don't.
I was going to say, I don't want to be impolite and cut you off here. We need to be conscious of Kylie's time.
Right.
We do have to wrap this up here. Are we good on an 87 for the final grade for this movie?
Yes.
Perfect.
Great.
Final summation.
Thank you everybody so much for tuning in to this extremely special Christmas episode of the Goldloppers podcast. My name is, as always, Ethan May.
And I'm Kylie Stone.
And I'm Hannah May.
If you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ethan May Act. We also have a Goldloppers podcast Patreon and Instagram and a Twitter. We don't use the Twitter, but you can also follow us on our Goldloppers social media if you want to support the show and what we do.
I am on YouTube and Instagram as Kylie Ann Stone and TikTok as Kylie A. Stone.
I don't exist on social media.
Hannah does not exist on social media. Please don't try to follow Hannah on social media. Anywho, thank you everybody so much for watching the first watchable episode of the Goldloppers podcast. It was so much fun making this. We had so many technical problems, but it really was a joy to sit down with my family and my best friend and talk about this movie. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you and yours. And we will be back with our regularly scheduled audio program next week with Sleepless in Seattle, starring Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. We'll see you then.